Can
Uh, no, it's around 4:30, I guess, for me.
Chintaka, Rifana is now power cut is finished. She is
Okay,
going
okay,
to record it. Then no
right,
problem. Because I
right,
was
right, right.
interrupt. Okay.
Yes, sure.
Rifana, you can record it.
Let's start then. So Rita can join with some introductory remarks. So, Chintaka,
Yes.
you can start.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I warmly welcome all the participants to the second of the HARTI monthly lecture series. Actually, we started this one last month along with our 50th anniversary. So this year HARTI is celebrating 50th anniversary along the way. So with that, we thought of restarting this monthly lecture series. Actually, we had this kind of a lecture series quite a while ago, but it was dormant during the last couple of months with this all the pandemic situation and all the prevailing situation of the country. But it's happy to announce that we restarted it last month, and this is the second day of such a series. So the objective is this kind of arranging this kind of a lecture series is to give participants a chance to get some insight from eminent speakers around the country, along with some selected themes. So, as our director said last time, it was Dr. Vagisha. She talked about how this prevailing economic crisis and what are the way out of the crisis as a country. So, I think today's theme that we have selected is quite relevant to the same theme. So you will understand on the way when the lecture is proceeding. So without taking much time, I invite our director, Mr. Malinda Seneviratne, to introduce our speaker to the audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chintaka. Now, we are privileged to have with us today Indira Malwatte, who will be speaking to you on positioning Sri Lanka as a prominent hub for innovative products and services. Rather relevant topic given the fact that all of a sudden everyone has realized that we have a foreign exchange crisis, we have a trade imbalance, and that somehow we have been lulled into several years or decades of just being happy with a kind of a import mafia right? Situation, and we have never really concentrated on fixing this imbalance. Right now, we have to, since we don't have the dollars, we need to figure out how we can manage what we can produce and look at things that had potential but were ignored for many years, unfortunately, and which has contributed probably to the crisis that we are facing now. Now, Indira Malwatte is someone I have known for almost all my life because she lived next door. But she's not only known to her neighbors, she's known in many important circles as a very important person who has contributed to fixing the problems that our country faces. She has not retired, and I don't think she can ever retire, given the kind of drive that she has. She's the former chairperson of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, DDB, and currently serves as an independent non-executive director in several companies covering multiple sectors and engaged in consultancies on international trade, the SME sector development, and women entrepreneurship. So that covers a lot of ground, and Ms. Malwatte has vast experiences in this sector, and she's probably very knowledgeable about the constraints in our overall institutional arrangement, the corporate sector, the public sector, and the kind of work cultures we have. And I think that we can look forward to a stimulating exploration of these themes, and hopefully a very fruitful discussion thereafter. So I warmly welcome Ms. Malwatte to speak to us about these issues. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you. Good afternoon, Malinda and Chintaka. First for having invited me, and I selected the topic. Chintaka gave me the freedom to select a topic. I thought it was important that we have to have new thinking, fresh thinking. So I selected the topic of position in Sri Lanka as a prominent hub for innovative products and services. I think the young are earning to have changes in the country. And one way of change will be by innovation, R&D, and introducing a wider range of products and services based on innovation and R&D. So the key to position Sri Lanka as a hub for innovative products and services is to nurture innovation and entrepreneurship, and to be able to integrate to global trading. Now, why integrate to global trading is because Sri Lanka is a very limited market of 22 million people. So therefore, the economies of scale, whether it's for services or for production, you narrowed it down. So therefore, Sri Lanka can't be alone. You have to be a part of be a global citizen and be in the international business. So global trading is important for minimizing the economic damage to our country. Even if the IMF bailout is arranged, it will not resolve our problems. It will only meet some of the requirements, but it will not meet all the foreign exchange requirements of our country. So therefore, exports becomes critical, and we cannot export just any product or service we have. We have to look at the global market to where we actually export to. Therefore, Sri Lanka has to integrate to global trading and be part of the global value chain. I referred to Sri Lanka being positioned as a prominent hub for innovative products and services. Now let us see what is meant by a hub and how Sri Lanka is placed. I will talk of the innovative, some of the innovative products and services later on. Now, if you define what a hub is, it's a place where goods from different countries are brought, value added, or marketed without having any value addition, but only for trading purposes. That's a broad thing of what a hub is. Now, to give an example of a very good hub, I would think of it as Hong Kong, which will give us understanding if Sri Lanka is to become a prominent hub, what do we have to have? Now, when you look at Hong Kong's economy, its economic strength includes sound banking systems, virtually no public debt, a strong legal system, ample foreign exchange reserves, a level playing field for businesses, simple and a low tax regime, free flow of capital and information, and world-class infrastructure, among several others. So if we are to aspire to be a hub, where do we get to? Remember, we were once a very vibrant hub for luxury goods like silk, china, gems, ivory, exotic spices, as well as exotic animals many, many years ago. So Sri Lanka's position in Southeast Asia at the crossroads of the fastest growing region in the world and its proximity to the fastest growing markets increases the importance of the country. I'll explain it by giving an example. Look at Colombo port. It focuses on container transshipment largely for the textile industry. The Magampura port provides services mainly for vehicle transshipment of Japanese, Korean, and Indian car makers who use this port for transshipping vehicles built in these countries to markets in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and the Americas. The country has also established free ports and bonded areas to facilitate imports and exports of goods and services through the Commercial Hub Regulation of Finance Act, which facilitates investment opportunities for specific trades and businesses, for example, bunkering. Then the country's FTAs, free trade agreements, are also very relevant because we have free trade agreements with India, Pakistan, and Singapore. And we envisage having FTAs with China and Bangladesh. This will make Sri Lanka an ideal hub for expanding trading activities with the whole of South Asia and East African emerging markets. These FTAs will also benefit our exporters who will be able to diversify and secure better markets. Once again, to make it easy and to understand, let's look at the export of strawberries from Sri Lanka. Who would think that Sri Lanka could export strawberries? Now, that company made use of the FTA with India because you could export strawberries to India at 0 duty. Whilst if it came from Australia, there was a 28% duty. And when you look at the close proximity to India, you look at the Chennai airport, within 45 minutes, a flight reaches Chennai airport, and it's cleared within 2-3 hours because they're perishables. It gets to the market by afternoon, and we have sold more than 1.5 tons to 2 tons of strawberries. So this is the proximity, Sri Lanka's location, as well as making use of the free trade agreement between India and Sri Lanka. People were very nervous about the FTAs, that there'll be a big flow of goods that would come from India, but it's not so. The beneficiary has been Sri Lanka. Now we'll look at the key requirements for a hub, because we have to understand where we stand in Sri Lanka. We have overall stability of the economy, a conducive business environment, sociological transformation. Now, what does that mean? For me, that is attitudes of officials, especially when you have to cross borders with products and services. Most officers suspect exporters as not being honest, which is not true, So therefore, we have to have the attitude of officers, and I think it must be in every government official that exports and trading is important, because that's one way for Sri Lanka to get its foreign exchange. So treat all in a way that we are all, get it into our DNA that we are going to help each other to get out of this problem. Then the entrepreneurship of businessmen is very critical, because we cannot depend on government alone. It's the businessmen who will be entrepreneurs. Then we should also have a high general education, which Sri Lanka has in the general education, but we have to have extensive vocational training. Now, when you look at Singapore and Hong Kong, it is the vocational training that got them there. We also have to have the ability to acquire advanced technology and a conducive environment for undertaking R&D. Then the legal framework to protect intellectual property rights and similar legislation, compliance to international standards, and the list goes on. So science, technology, innovation are often the center of a country's economic development. A national innovation and entrepreneurship strategy was drawn up for a period of 5 years, 2018 to 2022, and that was launched. Now, why is it important to have innovation and entrepreneurship strategy? Over the years, Sri Lanka has failed to diversify its economy, introduce new products and services into its export basket, and even for the domestic market. Actually, this has stifled its ability to generate higher paying jobs and integrate more with the global supply chain. Unlike competitors in the region like Vietnam, Thailand, and Singapore, Sri Lanka has added very few new products to our export range, and our export composition has remained largely stagnant. Actually, no country has transitioned to an upper middle income country and then to a high income status without strong focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. Sri Lanka risks being caught in the middle, and particularly now is far more challenging. We cannot compete on the low cost, low end of the spectrum. We are not fully engaged on the high tech end of the spectrum either. So therefore, innovation and entrepreneurship must be the new focus to boost competitiveness and dynamism across all segments of the economy. The private sector entrepreneurs need to be more productive and innovative. As I said before, we cannot expect this from government. Government can only give us a conducive environment for developing innovation and our entrepreneurship. Better use of technologies can bring us closer to the global technological frontiers, but resilient growth demands constant innovation. Now, what are the current challenges faced by us? Several challenges hold us back from fully unlocking the potential of innovation and entrepreneurship to drive the economic growth. The economy is, as I said, not diversified enough for its produce. Exports continue to be largely in labor-intensive manufacturing, while technology and capital-intensive exports are low. Let's take the apparel industry. Apparel exports have been manufacturing and exporting, contributing almost 40% of the export earnings of our country. They certainly have moved from a cut and stitch operation to a total solution provider, which is very, very creditable. However, further development in this sector will be challenging if we do not invest in new innovation and R&D. It might be a matter of time. We may lose our GSP plus. So we cannot compete on a low tax regime. It is only if we have innovative new products, having done R&D, that we can compete in the very same markets that we were able to enter very well because of the low tax regimes. So with the rising wages in Sri Lanka is unable to compete with low wage countries like Bangladesh, East African countries, and Myanmar. And there are shifts in the markets too, especially after the COVID pandemic. The supply chains have changed and will be changing. The main buyers of our apparel, who are from EU, UK, and USA, want to cut the delivery times, and they are looking at more onshore or nearshore production. So that is something that we will have to think about. Today, I got the report of the export earnings. The earnings of merchandise exports have, up to June, have increased by 20% year on year to $1.2 million. Now, for me, that is not a very important figure, because when you look year on year, 2021 was a bad year. So I think increase of 20% there, we are not doing very well. But what is interesting there is, whilst apparel has contributed, coconut-based products, food and beverage, and seafood have contributed significantly. We may see pockets of research excellence existing in the public, and R&D systems are unfortunately very fragmented in the government organization. Look at the tea, rubber, and coconut research institutes. We have 3 good labs, separate labs in all 3 organizations. Can we not possibly amalgamate some of these labs and only have very specific tests which cannot be done in amalgamate lab done by the specific labs? because most institutions in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, work with little collaboration. Therefore, the R&D budgets are woefully inadequate for a growing middle-income country, now, of course, further lowered. Then of the weak incentive regime to reward and recognize R&D and commercialization of research. Commercialization of research is very important. In public research and development institutes have led to a brain drain of research talent from the country. So government support for research and development must be seen not simply as a spending, but as an investment for Sri Lanka's future. In introducing new products and services, I think the startups play a major role. There was a very impressive startup ecosystem in the Western province. However, with the current business environment, I'm not sure how this stands. And then with the banks and other supporting institutions having their share of own problems, there'll be a lack of early stage finance and support for growth-oriented startups to emerge in other parts of the country. I spoke of the apparel sector. While keeping the apparel sector industry as a base, we need to expand to other products that use high technology and who work smart. Therefore, a conducive R&D environment should be created for technology acquisition for the purpose for both the local private entrepreneurs and to attract quality FDIs, quality foreign direct investments. A few companies in Sri Lanka, very credible, have launched homegrown solutions. Today, they launched a homegrown electric car. In fact, where 55% is made in Sri Lanka. And with one charge, it can go up to 200 kilometers. So the private sector is there, but we have to encourage them. So this type of thing has been done very effectively in Thailand and Vietnam, and of course, Singapore many years ago. I think Singapore is an excellent example of a country positioning itself as a prominent hub for innovation and innovative products and services. Sri Lanka is still in the second industrial revolution, and we have to move on to the fourth by bypassing the third if we are to be a global player. We don't have the resources of wealthier countries, more so now with the numerous economic issues we are facing. So therefore, as a country, I think we have to prioritize ourselves. We need to create a resilient and innovative economy with export competitiveness, an entrepreneurial society with better jobs for our young people. So this strategy that was drawn up, we'll look at support entrepreneurs to innovate and become more competitive in the domestic and export markets, build an ecosystem for scaling up growth-oriented startups, and also to modernize and realign the R&D sector to be enterprise-oriented. It should not be just R&D for the sake of R&D. Now that HARTI is part of the agriculture sector, I must say, the Department of Agriculture, if you look at all the PhD holders, I don't think any other government department has many, maybe the central bank, as many PhD holders as the Department of Agriculture. And where is the agriculture sector? It's still many years behind. So if we use all this knowledge that we have got by studying and contributing, I wonder where Sri Lanka should be. So the innovation and entrepreneurship strategy forms a part of a series of reforms. It's not on its own. It's a series of reforms that was undertaken aimed at enhancing trade and exports, like the National Export Strategy and the National Quality Infrastructure, National Infrastructure Strategy, both which are approved but need to be actively implemented. For me, Sri Lanka has strategies and strategies, but what we are lacking and where we are weak is that when it comes to the actions identified in these strategies. And I must say, all these strategies, the entrepreneurship innovation strategy, the national quality infrastructure strategy, and the national export strategy was not done by one government department. There were extensive stakeholder meetings right throughout the country, from large to small to startups, when all these plans were drawn up. So it's an inclusive one. And I must also say, it also is apolitical. So whichever government that comes, without having to reinvent the wheel, these strategies are there. I must say some of the in the national export strategy, some of those actions were implemented and it's continuing to be implemented. But what I see in the recent past is it's just lip service to it. And these strategies are brought up each time there's a change in a minister, a chairman or someone brings up the strategies to say we have these strategies, but that won't help our country. It has to be implemented. So for this, what was done was we developed action plans for each of them, so that there was a timeline, the money that needed from government, what would be shared by the private sector, and the responsible government or private sector bodies who are responsible for a particular action. And we also identified, because we couldn't do a broad area, we identified 6 sectors initially under the national export strategy. We looked at a visionary sector and we selected boat building, electronic and electrical sector. Then we looked at as a service sector, because before long, Sri Lanka the service sector will bypass the merchandise sector in Sri Lanka. We looked at the ITC and the BPM sector and wellness tourism. Not tourism, but we got it into a smaller thing called wellness tourism, actually making use of Sri Lanka's ancient heritage of Ayurveda, the Buddhism and the Hinduism and the meditation, the basic foods that we eat, which could be organic by default. So putting all these things together, we looked at the wellness tourism, because this is going to be the fact when people are stressed out, and especially post-COVID, people want to de-stress themselves, rethink of their lives and move forward. So wellness tourism will be an ideal way to promote tourism in Sri Lanka. Because when you get a foreign tourist coming into Sri Lanka under the wellness tourism sector, you can earn over $250 to $300 per day against tourists who come only to enjoy the beach and the sand, the sand and some of the other attractions, the traditional attractions, which might be between $100 to $150. So we don't use our resources so much. We limit the number of tourists, and they're quality tourists who will come into Sri Lanka. Then we also looked at a value-added sector. Sri Lanka being an basically agriculture country, we looked at spice and spice concentrates, not just baling cinnamon and exporting it, but going into more concentrates of it. And we also looked at processed food and beverages. Now, in fact, tea, instead of bulk tea going in a packaged form, is in a processed form. Whilst these 6 sectors are selected, we also wanted to support with other functions, other trade support functions for the sectors which were not specifically targeted in the national export strategy. So therefore, we had trade information and promotion, national quality infrastructure, and logistics. We came across a number of policy and regulatory bottlenecks. Now, I must say, for these, you don't need money. It's only the commitment of government officials, the cabinet of ministers, that need to change these bottlenecks in policy and regulatory bottlenecks. People always think, oh, we don't have the budgets, we cannot do it. No, there are so many things we can do for the ease of doing business. So I think we have to all look at these things seriously. Don't wait for budgets to be allocated by government. Look and see what can we contribute to help people to do business. Of course, we will have to relook at the national export strategy post-COVID and the current situation in the country, but that's a case of having to go through it and then see how relevant it is. Now, why does innovation and entrepreneurship play a key role in products? I'll just explain a few products. From basic commodities, we have to move into value-added innovative products. I spoke of the processed and beverage sector as a sector that is to be promoted. In the agriculture sector, the new trends will be plant-based protein products. More so with the COVID, people are becoming very particular about the meats they eat. So there was a substitute way of getting their protein. So plant-based protein products is something that people are looking at. Now Sri Lanka has the young jack, the polos, and they make it into a beautiful hamburger. It's strange, I had never had it in Sri Lanka, but I had it in Sweden, and they said the vegetarian polos hamburger came from Jaffna. So there are people have been innovative, they have been thinking out of the box, but it's just that for continuity and for ease of doing business, we have to have this conducive environment. Then vegan foods. And the new trend, they say, is upcycled food. There's an emphasis on reuse, reduce, and upcycled ingredients. According to Trade Hunters 2021, in their trend report, they seek upcycling emerge as a key trend. Now, this is something I think HARTI, being agrarian, agriculture-based thing, could concentrate on. Instead of discarding seeds at the processing level, they are upcycling it and they transform and convert these leftovers into food snacks, energy bars, protein powder, and pet food. Let's take one example of Sri Lanka, the pumpkin. We all know when pumpkin at its peak harvest, the farmers they keep the pumpkins on the roads and they are willing to sell it for any price. Can we not do pumpkin flour, which is a good cake mix? Then pumpkin spice latte using pumpkin and our spices, pumpkin yogurt, etc. So I think having Malinda there and people like Chintaka, let's think of new products that we can certainly do with our own products, that especially the harvest time, because unfortunately, when one farmer grows pumpkin and he gets a good harvest, those surrounding them all grow pumpkin, and then they automatically bring the supply and demand, bring the prices down. Then the other interesting sector for innovative products, and I said services, it's not only product services, is the IT BPM sector. Now Sri Lanka, from servicing the London Stock Exchange to international airline back office operations to undertaking R&D, are now moving to the gaming and immersive technology industries. The shipping industry is also another industry that includes a number of services that we can extend, from including crew changes, supplying and replenishing food and water, ship repair spares, etc. The National Export Strategy, I also identified boat building, and another industry that can come with boat building and yachting is nautical tourism, which was considered a visionary sector. So although the boat and yacht building is a product, along with it comes numerous services. For example, when you build a yacht, you need to do the interior decorations of it. So for that, you need furniture, you need paintings, you need cutlery, you need crockery, a whole host of things in order to complete the interior of the yacht. And actually serving foreign yachts as a service can come at a very high return on foreign exchange. Because once they berth in Sri Lanka, they berth for about 3 days. And it's not only supplying all their food, water, that kind of thing, they also need some recreation. So with that will be at least 2 to 3 days recreation facilities extended to those who come in yachts. So the NIS has identified also a number of ports to be developed across Sri Lanka for promoting nautical tourism. So it becomes inclusive development, and it doesn't limit it to Galle, Hambantota, or the Colombo ports. I spoke of the wellness sector as one of the service sectors. Then there's construction. There are a number of African countries that Sri Lanka are engaged in doing consultancies on construction, doing the plans, architectural plans. Then we have hydropower. Again, in African countries, it's the Sri Lankans who are dominant in the mini hydropowers. I think that is in the DNA of Sri Lankans, of the hydraulic history that we have had. The professional services, quantity surveyors, accounting, banking activity, and education. I'm a firm believer that we should have private education, private universities in Sri Lanka, because we are, as I said, we are geopolitically very well placed. As a SAARC country, Sri Lanka will be a good option for the SAARC students to come in as a neutral country within SAARC. So I think we have to take advantage of that. To be internationally competitive, high quality products and services are synonymous. So the national quality infrastructure, this will help towards implementing standardization, including conformity to assessment services, accreditation, among others. And the NQS strategy was designed in conjunction with the NIS. So they were not independent. So you have the infrastructure innovation and R&D one, then you have the national export strategy and the national quality infrastructure built into each other, which are requirements for all three to be successful. The legal framework will establish transparent, independent institutions within the national structure that can work with international organizations like WTO, the World Bank, and other donor agencies. So the NQI, the National Quality Infrastructure, has been developing progressively and has established the main functions required to operate and be internationally recognized through multilateral agreements. So it is envisaged that the NQI strategy, once implemented in full in Sri Lanka, it will encourage industrial and agriculture development to get to another level, reduce barriers to trade and entrepreneurship, and facilitate global technical cooperation. There are key NQI priorities to be addressed, which have been already placed. So we all need to get together to address all this. Then we also need to have, as I said, the national export strategy, the national the NQI, and the innovation and entrepreneurship strategies, all to be working together in a collaborative manner, and it has to be relentlessly pursued. I always give the example of President Park in Korea. He had almost once a week meetings to see that their exports grew. So there's nothing that Sri Lanka cannot do if we are all committed. And for me, this is right now very important. There is a yearning among Sri Lankan youth to create a paradigm shift in our economy. So innovation and entrepreneurship provides an ideal platform to make it happen. We have all to get together and only have an enabling environment. So HARTI is part of an important government organization who can contribute positively. I request you all to take some of these things and see how we can take it forward to be able to be someday independent of all these debt. Are there, I think, in Sri Lanka, awakened youth who wants to shift in our economy? Thank you. I can take any questions, Malinda or Chintaka.
Yes, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much for your informative presentation, madam. And I think it was very interesting and, of course, very thought-provoking. Sort of 40 minutes we have spent with you. So yes, as madam said, now it's open for discussion. You can raise your hand or you can just start talking. And of course, you can type down the question if you wish to in the chat box. So I think it's time for you, for the audience, for your questions, comments, and queries.
Quick questions. Thank you very much. And you said a lot of things that we can think about when we design our research strategy and how we move forward in how we can use the resources at our disposal in supporting exposed agriculture. It's strange that we are a tropical country, but we are a net importer of fruits. When we talk about food waste, and we are essentially talking about the people half eaten plates of rice and things like that, but there are a lot of food that gets wasted under our trees.
Yeah.
Even like the posata and all these things, which can be transformed into very, it takes, sometimes if the state doesn't do anything, that does not mean people need to do nothing. There are ways in which you can, but in all this, one of the most important thing is the role of development banks, because those have played a key role in the transformative stories that we hear in other countries. We had the People's Bank and the Bank of Ceylon were supposed to do that. Then
I think more the DFCC and the NDB was set up for that.
Yeah, but then now they have
they are commercial banks.
Yeah. So not many. I mean, we talk about privatization, which has its pluses and minuses, of the state banks, which of course is debatable. But these banks, which were set up for this kind of thing to support the kind of entrepreneurial spirit the people may have, we can do this. The young people that we are talking about, but I think I'm wondering why. You might be able to shed some light on this. There's no discussion on the importance of development banks in this process.
I think, Malinda, there were a few discussions because people realize now some of these big exporters who are exporting over $1 billion or US dollar exports, all of them benefited by the DFCC and the NDB, the development banks. And in fact, as a solution, without keeping those two banks, there was once a directive that was given that a certain percentage, if I'm not this thing, it was 15 to 20% per portfolio of a bank should be extended to new entrepreneurs and the SME sector and in selected areas. But unfortunately, all these banks look at collateral. So entrepreneurship and collateral is something, if you have that collateral, you may be already an entrepreneur, right? There's no risk at all. So entrepreneurship means, or startup means, there's a risk factor. So that risk factor has to be taken by someone. And if you have a good project proposal, I think the proposal should be looked at as collateral, not at the assets of a person. The young people would not be able to have those collateral. There was also a scheme that was started for graduates under 35, again, where it was to be worked through the People's Bank and the Bank of Ceylon to help young entrepreneurs, and especially here graduates who wanted to be self-employed. But unfortunately, all these schemes start off with a bang and it has a natural death. When there are changes in government, when there are changes in heads of department, when there are changes in ministers, people look at it differently. So I think for us, what is critical in our country is this consistent policy. If you can agree to a policy, and irrespective of who comes, national interest first, we should be able to actually have some of these schemes going. They were excellent schemes, a lot of time taken to draw up. But unfortunately, it's where it is.
So a quick follow-up question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Right. I can understand state banks being given directives like, okay, 15% or 20%
Yeah.
SMEs.
Yeah.
But is it profitable? I understand there is a issue, the element of risk, but the countries also, you get commercial banks that that help people. Maybe not to the extent that is required, but banks, regardless of policy changes from government to government, could they not allocate certain, a percentage for that kind of thing? Because now we see banks making profit from leasing, rather than it's easy for people's banks.
Easy, yeah.
But that does not produce anything. There's no production.
Yeah. So I must say some private banks have looked at it positively. A lot of them want another government organization, Malinda, to hold the hand, so that even if a good proposal is submitted, that this proposal is vetted by another government department, and it says the market possibilities are there. There's a future for this particular product or services, and it is a profitable product or service to be done. And a few banks, I must say, I don't want to mention the names, but there are a few banks who have looked at it positively and actually worked out special schemes for SME exporters and prospective exporters. So it's just that we have to have a dialogue with them and give the private banks the confidence that it is a feasible project, and it's a project that will be the collateral, and both any government department who is submitting who's helping them with that particular project hold the hand of the bank for a while till it gets launched and it starts making not profit but at least operational profits. So I think if you do it actively, you can take up the challenge of doing for the agriculture sector, because you have good research officers there and they're very knowledgeable, and they could be helping some of the agriculture sector entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs. And now if you see during COVID time, lots of people have come with organic products. They do deliveries to the doorstep. A lot of things have happened in the last 2.5 years. So I'm sure if government departments actively look at these people and work along with a bank, I can later tell you some of the banks who actually have helped them. We should be able to launch something through you all.
Thank you, madam. Actually, follow up to your answer for the question. Not to get it spotlighted, but just for your information, HARTI actually this year also we are planning some that sort of a awareness program by getting hand in hand with some of the organizations like IDB and provincial development of provincial agricultural department and provincial department of animal production and health. So we are trying to make the community or the potential and what do you call that emerging entrepreneurs aware about how this process has to be neatly followed, and how you get to register your new organization and things like that. So we are still planning some district to be selected, but there are few district has been selected and organizing facilities has already been done.
Yeah.
Just for your information, madam. And before going to the
can I just give a comment on what you said?
Yes.
That part, I think first you have to look at the entrepreneurs and where are they going to market it, right? Because if one doesn't have a market, you have no income. So it's not just a case of starting an enterprise, but first look to see, is there a market? First to start with the domestic market. Don't look at the export market. First look at the domestic market. Is there a requirement for that particular product in the domestic market? Then you would have to tell them, if so, what are the price points? what the quality requirements, all that will have to be done. But please start not with the product they have.
Yeah.
We always make this mistake. We
Yes.
have a product and we want to export, or we have a product and we want to sell. But you have to see, it has to be buyer driven. If there's no demand from the buyer, the best product is useless. So I'm just cautioning you on that. Excellent
Sure.
that you all are doing this, but get in some marketing information into your program. Then it'll be a success.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your advice. And before going to another participant, there are two questions in the chat box, madam. I don't know whether you can see that.
I can't see. No, if you.
All right. Okay, I'll read it out for you. One second. Yes, Bandula Nisanta. First one is, has the government property? I think it's properly. It should be properly. Has the government properly prioritized the export sector as per the current crisis? Have they recognized the priority when they think health should be given priority under an economic crisis as a result of short of foreign exchange? That was the first question. And there was another question, and there's another question. Do you think that we have a proper mechanism to distribute foreign currency loans as grants to local organizations without reassurance that the grants will be used to increase the exports? Example, agriculture sector modernization project invested money on agro-techno parks, which never helped to improve foreign income or exports.
The first question of Bandula was whether we have a proper strategy or a plan.
Oh, no.
Right?
Has the government properly prioritized the export sector as per the current crisis?
Yeah. I would answer it in the negative, in the sense the government is still not talking of exports. They are talking of two things mainly. They're talking of worker remittances and they're talking of tourism as a main foreign exchange earners. Exports has not been given that prominent place that it should be, because I feel that should be critical, because that helps the production base in Sri Lanka, and it also helps the job opportunities for Sri Lankans. And if you identify the priority products in the sector, now for I said IT and BPM sector, we have such educated youth in our country who can be gainfully occupied without them having to go out. So I think we have identified the sectors, but the government is still playing lip service to the, we are looking at donor funding, we are looking at IMF bailouts, we are looking at everything else, but try and help the exporters. And it's not primarily money, right? It's ease of doing business, that, and then reforming some of the outdated laws in the country. Now, all that doesn't need money, or we don't need foreign exchange for that. But if all that is done, we can earn foreign exchange, right? I hope I answered Bandula's first part of the question. And then he had another one.
Yes, the second one is he's pointing out that the foreign funded projects, like foreign
FDIs.
loans,
I would imagine FDIs or loans.
Yes, it says foreign currency loans as grants to local organizations. He's referring to that particular aspect.
Fine.
And what is his question is whether it has been distributed properly. That's what it's mainly asking.
Yeah, I'm negative on that, because I think a lot of friends and relations got money on that. Okay, and again, if they looked properly at the projects that were to be submitted and they evaluated by independent people, there were some lovely projects I know that had been submitted into that, but nothing got way, you know. So as I said, we have to think national and not to look at private agendas. Otherwise, that scheme that was drawn up by the World Bank was an extremely good project with the technology parks and assisting the companies to modernize their agriculture. It benefited a few, but it actually did not meet the objectives when that proposal was given to Sri Lanka. So unfortunately, I'm sure we have the time period must be over and we may not be having the funds from World Bank for it anymore. In fact, at one stage, they were wanting EDB to do it, to get involved in it. But then it was more the Department of Agriculture and the Ministry of Agriculture. So the EDB said we will be a party to looking at the markets for them, but we cannot actually implement it. But I sometimes wish we had implemented it, it would have gone to the correct people.
Yes. Any other questions from the audience?
Can I make a request? Usually, when we design our research and training strategy for, say, 2023, we consult stakeholders in the agrarian sector. Usually, it is all the relevant agencies, institutions within the government, the public sector, and through the Board of Governors. And also we consult the Research and Training Committee, which is a body which stands above all the researchers, vets the research and so on.
Yeah.
And we are doing our best to also obtain the views of actual practitioners, the farmers. They need to know what kind of information and analysis that we need to know what they require. We have tried to get the corporate sector to also give some ideas. I think it would be good if you are available for consultation for that kind of thing in terms of export agriculture, because that's an area that we might. There must be certain. The Chintak was mentioning training programs are very important part of these things, and we do so much of training. And we try to give, and entrepreneurship is one of the areas that we focus on. But maybe we could share with you some of the ideas that we have, and you might be able to suggest ways in which we can improve that exercise.
Certainly, because agriculture is something quite dear to me, because when I quit government, it was in the agriculture sector that I worked, and then came back to government. And there are actually lots of volunteers who will help you, who have been very successful in the agriculture sector. So I can always contact all these people and help HARTI to take it forward, because any department or government who wants to do it seriously, Malvinder, we are all there for you from the corporate sector. And I definitely know the agriculture growers, exporters, who of course look at it at a higher level, are really there. And one of the companies I'm working for right now, we have a big farmer network, and where we are introducing modern agriculture to them, where you use less fertilizer, you use less water, and the productivity is the same. And then of course, how you remove the field heat so that the pre-harvest losses are reduced. So all those technologies are already being done by a few private companies. So, and they'll be more than willing to come and help someone who is actually seriously looking at it, and where we can actually see some results, and it's not just a talk show.
That's the thing. Maybe we can have a kind of a discussion, a forum where we get to hear what they have to say, and then we can figure out how we can proceed accordingly. So thanks.
Yeah, and you can also get the farmers who are involved in those programs to come and frankly tell them what's happening, what's not happening, which will give you a good feedback to HARTI.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. Welcome.
Madam, if you don't mind, can I ask a question and make some comments what you have already told? One thing that you mentioned, answering to the Mr. Malinda's question regarding this collateral, taking the project as a collateral, that was a very interesting idea, and I think we could give a lot of faith on that kind of idea, especially for private sector organization to think on giving some support to these kind of entrepreneurs. When I was there I was in India, somewhere like 2017, this kind of a program, entrepreneurship development. Actually, it was a training, but I saw incubation centers. There was a concept called incubation centers where, as you correctly mentioned, after identifying potential employees and potential individuals, the government trying to take them to one particular station and give all the supports, mentoring, and things like that. Has Sri Lanka, like came to such a stage, or I think for me, it's far beyond of that kind of a situation.
Yeah, we had incubation centers for the IT sector along with the Malwatte University, right?
Yes.
So I think we have to have university experience also coming into this rather than being academic. Try to that's why I said commercialization of the research and development people have done. If you take all the dissertations that have been done for the PhDs at the Department of Agriculture officials, I'm sure there's a wealth of information in that. And with that wealth, if somebody can actually scan some of those ideas and then actually speak to those PhD holders and try and get those support, select a few of those reports and see what is most feasible for our country, short term, long term, and see how we can take it forward, because there's no point in having all this research done unless you can actually commercialize it. Then it just stands in a library or on a shelf somewhere. So incubation is something not unknown to Sri Lanka. It has been done for the IT sector very successfully, where they have an incubation for a period of, actually they pitch for the, now one idea I can give you all is, you get young people to come and pitch an idea, what they want to do. And actually at the EDB, we had for women entrepreneurs, we had a program where we trained them for 3 months on how to do a presentation based on their industry, but they were already engaged in. And one day we had each of them coming and pitching their proposal for a period of 10 minutes. So because of that, they looked at so many aspects for which they had already got a training of 3 months on financing, on marketing, on the importance of standardization, quality certification, all that. And they incorporated all this into their pitch. And actually we helped 3 companies. We didn't have the finances. We helped 3 companies. And what we gave them was, we didn't give them cash. What we gave them was, we told them if they wanted the services of the SLSI, or they wanted for insurance, or for one of the activities that they pitch for, we will pay the service organization direct. We didn't give the money to those people. So that actually brought us a lot of women entrepreneurs to get into the export market. So this is something you might be able to do, Chintika. Get the people in the agriculture sector and have a group who could give us results. Maybe even some agriculture graduates or other entrepreneurs or those who have done management. Now, the Jayawardhanapura, I met 3 not Jayawardhana, Moratuwa campus, I met 3 engineers. And what are they doing? They are into the coconut product value addition business, and they are doing it extremely well because they are using their engineering knowledge with agriculture. So they are doing some marvelous products, and we are trying to help them to export it. So that is something that they all can, for the 50 years that they are celebrating this year, Chintika, you could actually either by form of advertisement, or you might be having a database where you could talk to a bank and say to organize the funding, and it's collateral based on the project proposal. You know?
Yes. Thank you very much, and it's a very good idea, and we will work on that one. Madam, there's another raise hand. Germany Champika.
Yes, Chintika, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam, and Chintak and our director for organizing this excellent presentation. I was very fortunate to be the HARTI representative in the those series of workshops and the whole effort of bringing the national export strategy. So I actually represented the Trade Information and Promotion group. So actually it was such a very big experience for me, and I was very happy that I was amazed by the effort you were taking in actually doing that job. So it was such a big effort, and it is up to the present government or all the incoming governments to make use of it. That's my view. And my question is, Madam, as you correctly pointed out, the export should be demand driven. But the problem is, how can we evaluate or assess the demand in a foreign country for our, let's say, agricultural product? So what would be the best process? And can we make use of our, the high commissions or the embassies? How can we make use of those agencies as well?
Yeah, thank you, Javedi. The first one, I think if every government official is committed, you can get things done and look at things positively. So it's not just one individual or a particular board that did it. It was a collaboration of so many government departments and the sheer commitment of wanting to do it, Jamini, right? The second one about getting information, we have a good commercial attaché network. And I must also say there's a division for export agriculture at the Export Development Board with specialized officers. For example, one is on floriculture, one is on spice and spice concentrates, fruit and vegetable, like that, organic products like that. We have officers who are specialized in product sectors and similarly of the markets also. So those officers are knowledgeable not only of the product, but the possible markets for those products. And they have a very good understanding with the commercial attaches who are in our embassies and high commissions. So they will be able to actually tie up these people who are interested in exporting. But first, I would want them to do an export audit on the product that they are wanting to export. So there are various templates where you can do an export audit to see whether you're capable of exporting or not. And in case there are shortcomings, how do you rectify that? Well, now, for example, if you want to export any agriculture product, especially the fruit and vegetable, let's say, it has to be Global Gap certified. So don't even think of exporting to Europe unless it's Global Gap certified. Now, Sri Lanka has its own Sri Lanka Gap done by a large number of farmers. So those who have already in the Sri Lanka Gap has to only get to that next stage of getting Global Gap certification. Now, what lots of people do is they have a pineapple plantation or they have papaya and they think they can put it into boxes and start exporting. That is where we go wrong. Maybe a small sample shipment, yes, but certainly not for commercial shipments. So to get the knowledge, I would suggest you speak to the officers in the EDB of those different product sectors, get their knowledge, and then draw up whatever strategy you want to draw up with the farmers. And also understand single farmer cannot do it unless he has large extent of land. So you'll have to cluster farmers, and then get all of them to do one product. If it's pineapples, if they have half an acre or 1 acre, get at least 5 acres of pineapple done, and then first start actually giving to an exporter so that you learn your mistakes with the exporter of what the quality is, how you should. But now, for example, a pineapple, it should be 1 kg, at least 1.25 kgs is the minimum size. then the crown has to be straight, the stem has to be straight. So there are a lot of although it's an agriculture product, there are a lot of standards in those. So best is you speak to the EDB officers, and then along with them, you all can then, once people are ready with the product, look at what the market, look at the market requirements, and then only start at least talking to a buyer.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much, madam. And thank you, Germany, for your question. And I think we spent a very thought-provoking time. So if anyone does not have any other questions, yes, sir.
Just follow up on what Jack said about collaboration and research, and there are so many dissertations, and it's not just PhD dissertations, master's thesis, and you know, undergraduate dissertations in all the universities that have agriculture faculties, and also, you know, universities where they teach economics, commerce, sociology. All these are related, where they talk about agricultural issues. One of the things you said was very important, is that we produce knowledge, but it kind of gathers dust in the shelves of libraries. So to rectify that, we have done two things. One is we are in the process of signing MOUs with all the universities that have agriculture faculties, and others also, like, you know, arts faculties, science, statistics, and even moreover, we should, and something that hadn't crossed my mind, we need to think outside this agriculture. And then the other thing is, we have an excellent library where we are now putting together a catalog of all graduate, undergraduate and postgraduate dissertations, theses, so that it's there in one place online. If anyone searches for, you know, how to do strawberries, there must be something there, but no one knows about it. But if they do a quick search, they should be able to find it. Then that knowledge can be useful to anyone. Also, since we are a policy advocacy organization, these MOUs will facilitate that research, you know, the recommendations that come from research from the university system to be channeled through us to the policy maker. So that is something that we are trying to do. But I think what I found most interesting was, you know, we should work closely with the Export Development Board to really figure out how we can, because we can work together. It is just that they are in a different ministry, so I have to go through my secretary to that secretary to the architecture of administration is really skewed, and we have too many ministries, and we have too many ministries in agriculture also. So, but there are ways in which you can. And I think it's very good that you brought these things out. It makes us think a lot about how we should really think what our functions are, what the work that we are mandated to do, and how to do it in a better way. You know, for the people who pay our salaries. So that's very useful. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah, the one that you said about where you're documenting all the PhD or the theses or whatever, dissertations and all that. Now that will be interesting if you can actually have a. Do you have a newsletter or?
We publish 2 journals a year, academic journals, Sinhala and English.
Those are academic journals. But if you could share some of those with the corporate sector who are in agriculture, exporters who are in agriculture, and there are export associations who are dealing only with the agriculture, exporters, growers, processors. Now that will be a wealth of information for them, because even at the stage of recruitment or getting consultancies, if they realize that somebody is there in Sri Lanka having that knowledge, we don't have to spend money to get a foreign consultant.
Right.
You know, there can be somebody here. So if you can share that kind of information among that group,
Right.
rather than at an academic session, that will be very valuable.
Yeah, no, what we can do, that we can do. I mean, if you can put us in touch with all these
Yeah.
things, I'm sure we also should be able to find this on our own. But since you probably know these people, this catalog will be like classified. It's not just for academic communities. As you said, anyone who needs to find anything about anything related
to agriculture. Yeah.
So the catalog will be, I mean, it would be, there will be an index which will take you quickly to there will be search engines that facilitate that. And yes, so the moment you see something and you see a name and you type that name on Google, you're probably going to find out what he or she does, where she is. And that's good for them. And that's good for us. And we are saving foreign exchange.
Yeah.
So we have launched this scheme and we should be able to finish. It's going to be a huge thing because you have to go through even the universities. Sometimes the faculty library may have, but the university might not know about it.
Okay. Yeah.
So they work in such silos and that kind. But I believe that that would be an exercise which would be very useful. And it's not just for policymakers and academics. Obviously not. Not just for academics and policymakers. They are for the general public also.
And to commercialize it as much as possible. Yes. Then it brings value to whatever they have done.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Anything
Right,
else?
madam. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
All right. So anytime you all need time available, I'm there to help the agriculture sector and what HARTI is doing.
Thank you very much, madam. So it's I think it's time for us to wrap up the session today, and I must say thank you very much to you, madam, because when I invited you to for this event, maybe like 1 week ago, you very willingly and very positively took my invitation, and you, I think you delivered a masterpiece. And thank you very much again for taking us through this knowledge, ocean of knowledge, and it was a very interesting and thought-provoking couple of hours, I mean, like 1.5 hours. Thank you very much, madam, and for all of you, it's time to say good evening and thanks a lot, and have a pleasant evening.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks.
You're welcome, madam.